Welcome back to Eye on Foxborough. I'm Karen Guregian. I am thrilled to welcome back two-time Super Bowl champion Christian Fauria. Christian has a new venture. It's called Coach to Win, and you can find that on the YouTube channel. We'll be talking about that podcast a little bit later, but we must talk about the
Uh,
Patriots.
oh, let's. I'm actually so glad that you contacted me last week
Mm,
because I'm so ready to talk about what's going on with the
mm.
Patriots this week. I'm ready to discuss it. And if you wouldn't have called me, I would have been talking to myself in the mirror,
Well,
yelling and screaming at myself.
you can talk to me, Christian.
Yeah.
Christian, of course, is part of WBZ's post-game
Mhm.
coverage. Um, you know, we saw this surprising win week one against Cincinnati. It's gotten progressively worse uh, in the six weeks since. It got so bad that Jerod Mayo called his team soft
Yeah.
after the
Yeah.
game. He walked that back a little bit. They play soft. Are you surprised it looks like such a train wreck right now?
Well, Well, hold on. Before we get to the train wreck part, okay, let's table that just for a second. I do want to, like, the soft part. When
So
he initially said it, Karen, did you know what he meant?
I thought he was calling his team soft
Like, you
collectively.
thought he was saying, like, okay, they turned it down. Like, they have no grit, they have no resilience. Like, when the challenges are tough,
Yeah.
they turn it down, right?
That,
Not that if they're in a bar fight, like they would run away for and hide underneath the table, right? It's because in my head, I was like, okay, when a coach openly post game calls his team soft, he's basically challenging them. Is the way is though how I ended it. Is how I the conclusion that I came to is that he's challenging them openly, which I think is such a disaster, Karen. It never works. It never works because imagine you're a player, Karen, and you're in that locker room and you're in that meeting room on Monday and all you hear about is how your coach called you soft. Take out the context. He just called you guys soft. And you're sitting there going, this guy's an idiot. He makes bad decisions. His play calling sucks. He does not, his messaging is completely off kilter. And here is this guy calling me soft. What right does he have to call me soft? Now, if you're one of those guys, then you completely tune him out. You think he is dumb. You think he is stupid. You remove the filter of goodwill and acceptance and team, and you completely go your own way. I just it's such a disaster when you resort to that, whether he meant to say it or not. I just wish he had a time machine where he could go back and instead of calling his team soft and then have to walk it back, I wish he would have said, I'm soft. I'm an idiot. I'm stupid. I need to be better. Those guys are giving their all, and I'm not putting them in a position to win. It's cliche-ish, Karen, but it is the only safe route to save your team from completely just tuning you out. That's the way I took from it.
yeah, it's like he should have taken a walk before he met the media
Yeah,
because
yeah. You know
it,
what? Excellent point, Karen. He should have said, "Let me
he,
count to 10."
yeah,
Yeah, it's the worst time to make a decision is when you're emotionally.
and he just saw his team get run over, 17 straight runs right up the
Yeah,
gut.
yeah. Oh, it's
No
such a
stop.
terrible feeling.
I mean, he was, it was embarrassing. It was humiliating, right?
Yeah, yeah. Because I think
Um,
the one thing you don't want to be, the one thing that as a football player, now he was a linebacker. He played the toughest, most physical position there is. The last thing you want your team to be known for is being soft, being a team that you can push around. Imagine what the Jets are thinking right now, guys. You push them around, you make it tough on them, they'll quit. they'll quit. Oh man. So when you open it up with like, are you amazed at how bad it's gotten? Like, no, not at all. I thought that Cincinnati was an outlier. I didn't think Cincinnati was real. I thought it was your typical crazy Cincinnati's not ready, high expectations. You add a bunch of turnovers, red zone blunders, points missed off the board. And then the Patriots played special teams. They didn't turn it over. They were real clean and neat, and they took advantage of the situation. And then I thought where really the ultimate sign, Karen, when I thought, okay, this is who they really are, was against Seattle. When the game goes into overtime, Patriots get the ball first. They have an opportunity. I think they ran it 3 times in a row, and I think they couldn't get. So the first down run was good, second down run was good. Then it was like 3rd and 1, and they couldn't get a yard. And then that's where the game ended. And then Seattle goes down. They make a bunch of big plays, and then the game is over. That's where I said, aha, that's it. That's the first sign where I thought they don't have a gotta have it play. Now, what's a gotta have it play? A gotta have a play. They have them in pass routes, and they have them in the run play. I don't think they have either. So the run play is always what is your best run play? Who is your what side of the line of scrimmage is your strongest side? If I call 38 toss sweep, I know I'm going to get at least a yard. If I call 34 dive toss crack, I know I can get a yard. In the run game, they don't have a gotta have a play. If I'm talking about it's 3rd and 4, it's 3rd and 5. What's my gotta have it mid-range play? And what is it? It's usually a quick little slot route option, sharing the same brain. They don't have it. What they do is they go back to running different plays over and over again instead of mastering one play. They haven't mastered one play. And maybe it's because Jacoby Brissett was in there, maybe because they were risk averse, maybe because they didn't trust Drake Maye wasn't in there. Like, they need to have those gotta have it plays, and they don't have it. That's the least of their worries, though, quite frankly.
Well, yeah, I mean,
Is that too much for you this early in the morning? Am I regurgitating?
no,
I
I
told you
mean,
I needed to vent, Karen.
well, we can vent together.
I would say,
I
how
mean,
is it for you? Like, when you go in, how have you seen the personality shift? How have you noticed from week 1 when it was take him to the hill, right? That whole rallying cry to what it is now.
yeah, I mean, that was such a good look and an uplifting thing. And, it almost like they set a tone or set a pattern for how they, as undermanned and untalented and whatever they are, how they could win in
Yeah.
spite of themselves, right? You
In
know,
spite of their talent and all that
right.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you know, but it was like the formula was you couldn't make a mistake, right?
Yeah. And you
And
needed help. And you needed help.
and you needed the other team to help you out,
Mm-hmm.
but they played that perfect type of game for them to win that first game. And you're saying, okay, if they can copy that week after week after week, basically force the other team to beat you, or if they're going to make mistakes, capitalize, they'll be in games. It looked like they could at least compete and be in
Yeah.
games. But now it's like between the mistakes, the penalties, the turnovers, I mean, they're just repeat offenders, mistake
Yeah.
repeaters. And
Yeah. Error
like
repeaters.
error repeaters. And it's like, then you try and figure out, is that more because of the talent in the player, or is it because they're not being coached? Right.
Well,
So
it's
that's the line you're trying to figure out right now.
I I think people. When I say people, I mean people like you, me, people who have known Jerod as a player, as a post career guy, as an assistant coach. People have endeared themselves to him, and they love him as a player. Now the goodwill equity, I think, is run out.
Mm.
and he's like, fast pacing this too, based on how you just tell how green he is.
Mm.
Um, so to be honest is also to be fair. So I would say when I look at a team with a lot of penalties, I say that's a poorly coached team. And
Mm.
I had coaches tell me um, all the time, and he a coach Al Saunders when I was with the Redskins at the time, he was yelling at all his assistant coaches. He's like, lazy coaches have lazy players. Um, and he was not yelling at the players, he was yelling at the coach. Why is your guy keep going off sides? Why isn't it important to him? You should make it important to him. You know, and I look at a guy like Hunter Henry. I think Hunter Henry's a great player. He's a great player, but he can't
Yeah.
stop jumping off sides. What is that?
Yeah.
What is that? You're allowed one or two, maybe, right? You're allowed a couple.
Just
Um,
keeps happening.
and they're happening at the worst time,
Yeah.
So, and I do think there's a domino effect that exists with this. One guy does it, and then, well, if that guy did it, well, then I could do it. And well, nothing happened to this guy, so I'm going to be a little loose and reckless, and I'm going to take a chance on this play because nobody really gets in trouble, and all he does is yell at us, and he doesn't really mean it. I will say this: when I threaten my kids with a punishment, let's say they do something wrong, and I say, listen, the next time you do this, phone's getting taken away, you're not going out, car's been taken away. Now, the next time they do it and I don't punish them, I lose all credibility. They're not worried about me. They're not threatened by me. They're not scared about me at all. They do, hey, well, he's all talk. He doesn't do anything. We can do whatever we want. So I feel like that's kind of the situation now. It's just, and it's so hard to bring them back in. It's so hard to bring them back in once everyone kind of says, well, I guess I better just take care of my own. And it's just they're in a really, really bad place. And I'll say this, it's not going to get any better. It is going to get worse. We will all focus on Drake Maye because it's easy to focus on Drake Maye. He's the savior, right? And everyone will ignore all the other massive issues that this team has. And then people just start pointing the finger at each other, which it already feels like they're doing.
Hmm. I understand Jerod wanted to be the type of coach that he was as a linebacker, kinder, gentler, kind of
Those
this
things don't go together, Karen. Those
open
things don't
door
go together.
policy. Yeah, the open
Well,
door, but
all those things that everybody's got an open door policy.
well, eh,
Bill has had an open door policy. You
he
can go talk to
he
Bill.
wanted players to have a voice, not be afraid to speak, say what was on their mind. But again, the problem is he's never done it before. So this is like him in training reels, trying to figure out, honest to
Yeah.
God,
This is a
what
beta test.
right, trying to navigate his way, and he's finding out his way, the kinder, gentler route. He needs to change that a little bit.
Well,
You know, he has to.
I think he needs to just pick a lane and stay in the lane. That's it. And not worry about us people, us reporters. The one thing that I found doing all these interviews for Coach to Win, talking to all these different coaches, the ones that are successful are the ones that are true to themselves. They are authentic. This is who I am. This is what you're going to get. Some of them are crazy. Some of them are disciplinarians. Some of them are a little bit of both. Some of them are Dan Campbell. Some of them are, Mike McDaniels. But they got to know, and that's the first thing. The second thing, which I think, in no particular order, I kind of like and wanted to make it be, they're smart. Like, you got to be smart. If you're not smart with your messaging, okay, here's what we have to do to win. And if you're dumb when the game comes around and you make a terrible decisions, everyone's gonna be like, huh? Like, so I don't think that he's generating any faith in his team. And you can't keep saying it's a rebuilding year. Nobody wants to hear that. Nobody wants to hear that. And they all know it. They don't want to hear it. They don't want to talk about it.
He's also not generating faith in himself with all the mixed messaging, coming out saying one thing
I
right
know.
after the game and then the next day doing a 180. I
Yeah.
mean,
It's very confusing.
that's been a pattern. And
Yeah.
and
Then why do you think it is then? Why do you think it's because he just is trying to be so opposite of Bill, right? And trying to please everybody. Like if Jerod Mayo was hired as the head coach of Indianapolis Colts or the Chargers, would he be the same way? Would he be worried about the same thing? Or is it just because he's the first coach to come after Bill, and Bill was so extreme one way, the pendulum completely swung the other way, right? Because he probably did he like it as a player? Did he realize that the players that they couldn't coexist with that type of coaching? He just completely is doing the opposite. And that is part of his problem, like you just mentioned, his messaging. He's all over the place.
right, right.
I have no idea what's going to come out of his mouth. Like, pick a lane. And I would say, if I was to give him any advice, like it would just be, you don't owe the media anything. Like you don't owe them anything, nothing. I would be more vague. I would stop being so truthful, and I would do what you said. I would take 10 minutes, 20 minutes, and then I would come out.
Yep.
Yeah, Bill would do that a lot. Other coaches do. Dude, just gather your thoughts, write them down. You know what? This is what I want to say. I think he gets himself in trouble when he does that.
I can't argue.
We'll wait. We'll wait, right? We'll wait for him.
Yeah. Before we get to your podcast, I do want to ask you about Drake Maye. And obviously, you've seen for 2 games now. I wrote that is good as the promise that he shows is great, but he can't save the team as presently constituted. But I think I've seen enough there that if they actually put a team around him, this is what you're looking for.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you would be cautiously optimistic. That's 2 games.
Word. Yeah,
it's 2 games, and I'm not crowning him in any way, shape, or form. The one thing I think that stood out to me was, and let's be honest, that game last week in London, he easily could have had a pick six. He could have had a pick six and another pick. He got lucky.
Yeah.
The Jacksonville Jaguars could not. They couldn't catch.
They couldn't make a play.
Yeah, they should have been. It could have went the other way. But whatever. Even so, it's like he's going to throw picks. What surprised me is I think he has a better understanding of how fronts work and how coverage works, based on how I see him subtly, slowly coming to the line. I see him, watching, the movement, the safety blitz. I see him checking at the line of scrimmage. I think if he can't understand what they're trying to do to him, then he'll never be able to be successful. He'll have little pockets of success. You can tell that he could throw that deep ball, that fade to booty pretty well. Like that's 2 weeks in a row. Those 2 guys share a brain on that play. And Drake has a lot of confidence throwing it. Obviously, he loves the tight ends. They're just so consistent and they catch everything. And it's always in a pocket where he can throw it. That to me is obvious. He's tough. We know that. You can't play the position unless you have some courage, especially when you're going to get hit. And he throws it.
Well, soft, Christian. You can't be soft.
Yeah, he can't be soft. Mac Jones. We thought Mac Jones was one of the toughest guys going for the first 2 years. Then we realized he was just, way too fragile and way too temperamental and just a little odd, But people couldn't stop praising him for his toughness, like playing through pain, all that stuff. It's the same thing. So I would there's no way. I would say this. The good thing about Drake is that he hasn't shown you anything where you're like, that's not it. He hasn't shown that yet. He hasn't been like the reckless young quarterback that runs all over the place, holds the ball in one hand, and it just looks like a comedy of errors, right? The ball, somebody hits his elbow, he loses. Like he doesn't look that
Yeah.
silly yet.
Yeah. I
That
mean, he's 22. He's 22 years
oh,
old.
he's a baby, and that's my point. Where it's like we have no idea what he's really going to be. Zero,
Hmm.
zero. Listen. His last 6 games may be a freaking disaster. So
Right.
what? I would say so what. I would honestly, if I'm coaching him, and I know his coaches, I just don't want you being down on yourself. I mean, call it like an internship. I don't know, however you want to label it, because you're not going to win a lot of games, and it's only going to get harder. The heat's going to get hotter, and guys are going to try to like bail on the entire. Wait till you get to Thanksgiving.
Hmm.
Jeez,
Hmm.
that's going to be a rough week.
You say you know the coaches, you know Alex Van Pelt.
Well, I know his offensive coordinator. Sorry, I know his quarterbacks coach, and I know the running backs coach.
Hmm. I mean, I've seen progress from training camp and even before that, the early camps when we got to see him. I've seen a progression, let's say. Um, I'm not sure. It's like, I guess the school's still out on Van Pelt as a play caller, but uh, you know, at the very least, as I said, at least I've seen progress with the prize pupil. Um, where they go from here,
Yeah.
who knows? Um,
How do you judge a coach though, Karen? If you like you from the outside, okay, how do you know if a coach is good or not? Forget about the rah rah. Forget about the messaging. How do you know if he knows what he's doing?
well, again, if I watching the games or rewatching the games, seeing what you see, or even watching it live, seeing what you see on both sides of the ball. And, are they running into what the defense is doing? Are they countering what the defense is doing? Does he have any imagination can you problem solve, you know? And the big thing with this Patriots team, I mean, how do you let somebody run 17 straight times down your throat without doing something to counter that? That's when I say, well, I know you're missing this guy, that guy, that guy, that guy. But if I have to put 11 guys at the line to stop it, I'm going to put 11 guys at the line to
You
stop
have
it.
to. Well,
But
you
that,
have to. I mean, you
but
have to
that's
now.
how, right? So
Yeah.
that's what I see. Offensively, if you can't get the ball to your receivers, if you can't do this and this again, it's about adjusting, creating. It's about knowing what's going to work against a certain defense. It's knowing, again, just having a feel for the game, a feel for
Yeah.
what's going on.
Yeah.
But
The other thing I thought about, I'll share this with you too, is, and tell me if I'm making an excuse for Jerod. So I feel like a lot of people lean that way. I don't know if you're ever going to know if he's going to be a good coach or not because of the talent that is on the team, the offensive line in issues, the slow development of the wide receivers, the health on the defense.
hmm.
Is it fair to say that right now he's not getting a fair shot, and we shouldn't be as critical as we are based on his roster?
I would say yes and no. I would say the deck was stacked to get him against him right out of the gate. First of all, replacing the guy he was replacing, a legend, even if the legend wasn't legendary the last couple of years, he was with the Patriots. I'm talking about Bill Belichick. So coming in after Bill, that's tough enough. But having a roster where basically you have to use all the coaching ingenuity that you have, right?
Yeah.
try and manufacture points, games, wins. It's not about the talent. It's about trying to make what you have better. Now,
Yeah.
I thought Bill was very good at that on the defensive side of the ball. He could have you and me playing safety and cornerback and and find a way to make that work. I mean, that was part of Bill's genius or ingenuity is that he could move things around so the weak spots weren't weak. And
Yeah.
that's again a sign of great coaching. Right out of the gate to be faced with that, I think is tough. And then throw in the injuries, throw in all the things that have happened, all the people you've lost, and it's a tall order. But that doesn't excuse some of the things that have happened. His mixed messaging, his in-game, whether he's afraid to say to DeMarcus Covington, I don't care how you do it, put 10 guys, 11 guys, we can't let them run anymore. Stop this.
Yeah.
Right?
Well,
I mean,
yeah.
but that's,
That's why I think that if Karen, if he was hired at any other team in the NFL, they would be talking about firing him before the season ended. He would be a one and done guy based on what you've seen already. You would, as an owner or as a GM, you would be sitting there going, "Oh no, we made a mistake," because he was hired by the Crafts. They are going to let this run its course. They are going to give him, I would say, 3 years.
Mhm.
I put it at 3 years.
Yeah.
And I just think the leash is really long. They're willing to wait. You know what? They'll say, they'll give all these different examples of coaches like Dan Campbell, and he didn't even win a game. And now look at them. They're the best team in the NFL. And I would say that's a terrible example. That's a horrible example because Dan Campbell is significantly true to himself more than anybody on this planet. And that's why, and he built that team with his own personality in mind. And that's why his team loves him. And that's why they're successful. And they were also smart. They made some good trades and they brought in the right people. And their coaches are staying. They're not leaving. But it's going to be, I don't even know how you get through the season, but you're gonna have to find a way.
We'll see. We will
At our
certainly.
round table, the Coach to Win round table that we're gonna have right here in this little studio.
All right, let's talk about Coach to Win.
Yes.
Your new podcast. Um, you delve into the impact coaches have on players on and off the field.
Yeah.
Um, you talk with coaches to have them kind of share their stories, their insights.
Yeah.
The first one I saw anyway was one with John Gruden, and
Mhm.
I thought it was terrific.
Yeah.
Maybe because it was his personality, but the stories you got him to tell,
Yeah.
the things you got him to share about coaching, I thought were very good. And as you said, maybe Jerod should listen in to some of these uh,
Yeah.
and learn a few things. But anyway, how did this come about? And uh, how do you come up? How are you going to come up with all these coaches and people and whatnot every single week?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, it started. I've been thinking about this for a while. This is like a 10-year, 12-year project. And when I got fired from the station up north, I just decided like this was the time to do it. And because I've had great coaches, I've had great bosses, I've had crappy coaches, and I've had horrible bosses. So, and I've been really lucky. Like the guys that I have been in my life had made a huge impact on my life. And then raising my kids and managing, that landscape with college and grammar school and high school and recruiting there are so many people that were just so scandalous and just so mischievous and just liars all over the place. I thought it would be good just to use these interviews as like a template or like a library for coaches who hey, listen, no, John Gruden's been through a lot and he's still surviving. Hey, like I'm a young quality control coach. I don't think I'm ever going to get my shot. And hell, here's Houston Nutt. Here's Frank Martin, UMass men's basketball coach, and here's how they came up. They never thought they'd have a shot. I just talked to the Notre Dame lacrosse head coach. He's won back-to-back national championships. I mean, the dude has put his work in. Those guys, those stories are needed as like a reference of what it takes, and resourcefulness. And then like hearing from the players, like what's important to them. Then hearing from parents, like, and like lessons to the parents, like, the guys, here's what the coaches don't want you to do. Here's what the coaches think hurts the development of their players. And that was really it. And then the other aspect of it. So I'm talking to a guy today. His name is Ethan Cross. He wrote a book called Chatter, and it's all about your inner voice. Like we all have this inner voice, and for most athletes, it's the negative voice is what grabs hold of them and limits them from succeeding. Right? They have no belief system. Their self-esteem is low. They're in a vortex of self-doubt. I'm talking to him about managing that. Like when you do drop a pass like Polk is doing, and your coach is saying you got to get out of your own head. How do you fight your way out of that? What do you tell yourself? What do you do to like get back into the game and not running routes and being nervous and anxious about, oh my God, please don't throw it to me, right? Because I don't believe I can catch it. I've been in a ton of those situations. Hell, I lost 2 touchdown passes in Super Bowls because I did not believe in myself. I was filled with self-doubt. And I felt like it's important to let other athletes know that is part of it as well. So that's basically it. Yeah, and like today, Frank Martin is
UMass basketball coach.
Yeah, he's the men's. He was at Kansas State. He was at South Carolina. He was fascinating. He is so intelligent. He is so smart, and he's tough as nails too. So everything Jerod Mayo is doing, he has the right game plan, is what I'm learning. Not like I'm an expert, okay, but like what I'm learning from the people that I'm talking to, the successful ones have the same game plan Jerod has, but it's taken them years to develop it. They've taken them years of like to build their reputation, like all this stuff about who wants his players to have a voice. Jerod wants his players to, be themselves, but they have to also be accountable and understand what's expected of them. And you can't just like having your own voice doesn't mean going on Twitter, and talking crazy. That's not your own voice. So that's why I'm doing it. And we have a lot of guys, have a lot of interviews that I've already done, and we're constantly searching for people to educate us because I just want to learn. That's all I really want to do. I want to be entertained as well. Mm-hmm. And that's why, like, even like with you, with all the coaches that you have interviewed, that you've talked to, I'm curious to know like who you liked the most, who you thought was the best, right? And because I feel like no one would know more than the boots on the ground reporters who are in the building every single day. Mm. Yeah.
Well,
it's a lot. I just gave you a lot.
It is a lot. Well, I mean, I haven't just covered football, so I've been able to, I've covered the Red Sox and the Bruins and.
Well, then you tell me, give me 3 traits that make those coaches great. Tell me what you think, what traits go into making a good coach. I mean, we all may have different traits. What do you think?
Got to be smart.
Agreed. You got to know your job. You got to know what you're doing, right?
I think you have to be a good communicator.
Yep.
And I think you have to kind of understand the other side, meaning you have to understand your players as people.
Yeah.
And not just athletes. And you, like you said, if you see somebody in a slump or someone who's fumbling, you gotta have to know how to help guys get out, get out of things like that, or you have to, be able to teach,
Yeah.
and I think again, going back to Bill Belichick, he was a great teacher. Uh,
Yeah.
so, but again, different people do it different ways. I was going to ask you, who's the most, I guess this is two different things, the most influential coach you've had on you and the best coach you've had. And I think that might
Well,
be different things.
no, no, it's funny. They're on my wall. My high school
Mm.
coach, Tim Lins, at Crespi Carmelite High School, and the guy next to him would be Les Steckel, my receiver slash tight ends coach at Colorado. My head coach at Colorado, Bill McCartney. I have Joe Gibbs up there and Mike Harmon and Bill. Absolutely, Bill was, and they knew exactly. And this is the hard part with coaches, like your mentors, your collaborators, your consultants, your teachers. You wear a lot of different hats. And that whole saying is that, they don't care what you know until they know that you care is probably the most important thing. So, like in Jerod's case, if they trust him, if they believe in him, if they know that he has their best interest at heart, like, hey, I'm doing this for your own good.
Mm.
Hey, call me soft all day long. Challenge me all day long, coach. I'm going to respond because I know you love me, right? And I talked to a guy the other day, and he was basically this one's going to come out. He's the quarterbacks coach for the Chicago Bears, and I want to find out how he was coaching Caleb Williams and what he was doing. And he was just like, listen, man, he's in his 50s. He's like, kids are different today, and you can't coach them the way we used to be coached. Like that doesn't exist anymore. And if you fight it, you'll fail. Right? There's a long list of the road is littered with guys who try to do it the old school way. It doesn't work anymore. So you have to be able to adjust to what they need, regardless of how old school you are. Because I just don't think there's an exception to the rule anymore, personally, with kids coming out of college with tons of money, NIL money, and used to, being on their phones. And it's just, there's a fine line. But if what I found is if they trust you because you're willing to get to know them and not in a passive way, like, oh my God, I just got to check this off the box. Hi, Karen. Okay, bye. Right. You got to it's got to be sincere. I feel like if you do that, I call it coaching by walking around.
Mm.
Okay. Coaching by walking around means when you're walking through the building and you see Karen's a third string long snapper. She's never even going to play. You take the time. It takes 5 seconds. Good morning. How you doing? Hey, how are your kids doing? Hey, I heard you went on vacation. What'd you do? Oh my God, that sounds like so much fun. Okay. Hey, good to see you. You'll get more out of that interaction than you will anything else you do the rest of the day. That to me, and that's not me just making up, that's a fact.
Mm.
And that's why I'm doing Coach to Win, because I feel like those messages are so important. And as a parent, I personally just want to try and get it right. I have 5 kids and they all play sports. So, and I've screwed up more than I've gotten things right. But on the 5th kid is the beneficiary of all the knowledge that I screwed up on the other ones.
Mm. Well, that coach that you just described to me screams Jerod Mayo. That
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
that's who he is.
Yeah. No, that's why I said his game plan, he's got the right.
Yeah.
He's just, his problem is his messaging is just, it's like this, and I'm like, I'm trying to keep up and I'm like, I want to support you, but geez, coach, what now I'm doing what? But you messed up. You went for 2. You shouldn't have went for 2. Why did we go for on 4th down? How stupid is that? Like, you can't be pointing your finger at me until you're doing the job right yourself, which means longer hours, more disciplined, diving in deeper, probably the law of diminished return, if you ask me. But they're going to they have to get a win. If they can just get one win, just one, man, it would make them feel so much better.
Well, Jerod actually said that said that
Oh,
yesterday.
did he?
He did. He did. When
Yeah. Yeah.
That's going to be the cure. Win that next game. So we'll see. But anyway, Christian, I could talk to you for hours and hours
Yeah, it's
and
fun.
hours. But anyone who's tuning in, I highly recommend the Coach to Win podcast. As I said, I watched the Gruden one, and I
Yeah.
thought it was excellent. You were an excellent interviewer, Christian, too.
Oh,
Just so
I don't know what I'm doing, Karen. I don't have a clue what I'm doing. I barely turn these lights on. You know how long it took me to turn these lights on?
you're fine. Anyway, thank you so
Yeah.
much. I'd love to have you on again at some point.
Anytime, 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 anytime.